Thank you for being here this afternoon. I'm on my phone due to a lack of strong internet connection. So I hope though everything will go smoothly. I just want to start at the top of the hour before we begin and thank John Burke for facilitating for me last month when I couldn't be here due to a family concern. But I would like to, it's 3:04 p.m. We'll get started with, before we vote on or before we approve the agenda, I would like to note that there's just two changes to the agenda. It's a matter of the order things are coming in. So following my Faculty Senate President's Report number 6. Kevin Stevenson will come next. He is originally item number 8, Employee Engagement Survey. We'll move that to number 7, and number 7, which where it was to be Pamela Cheek at 3:40, we're going to move that down to number 8 at 3:55. Okay. Do we have a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Thank you. A second?
I'll second. Nina?
Thank you. Any concerns, questions? So with the amendment that I mentioned, all those in favor, or I guess we don't, sorry, I'm a little discombobulated today. Seeing that there are no questions, concerns, or objections, the amended agenda is approved. Moving on to agenda item number 2, approval of the January 30 meeting minutes. Are there any corrections, additions, or concerns? Seeing there are none, the meeting minutes are approved. Agenda item number 3, our consent agenda, which includes curricula changes and committee appointments. Any questions, objections, concerns? Seeing none, the consent agenda is approved. At this time, I'd like to welcome President Stokes to give her president's report. President Stokes.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you, Chris. It's good to see everybody. I feel like it's been a while since I've been in front of all of you, and I do want to keep it brief, but happy to answer any questions that you might have. Of course, it's, here we are. I can't hardly believe it's the end of February. One of the great celebrations that happens, though, at the end of February and at the University of New Mexico is the celebration of the birthday of the institution. It's 135 years old. If you ever go into the sub, you see one of the best pictures is all the students dressed in their t-shirts, the t-shirt of the year to celebrate the birthday. And this year they're doing something pretty special, which is kind of an introduction to some of the space exploration, sustainable space research that goes on campus. I don't quite know what it's going to look like, but that'll be a pleasant thing that we do tomorrow. And, those are the fun things I get to do in my role. Things like tomorrow night, honoring alumni and their accomplishments, sometimes years after they've been on UNM's campus. but, you know, we are, you know, coming to the end. We've ended a legislative session, the short 30-day legislative session. There were some good things that came out of that legislative session for us. Kind of interesting to go into it, realizing just how much money's been available in New Mexico. I do think that, you know, shoring up the opportunity and lottery scholarships with a trust fund that could help sustain that over time is one of the good outcomes of the legislative session. We still need to wait a little longer on a few things just to be sure that the governor doesn't decide to veto something, but she has until March 6th. So I was at a chamber, an Albuquerque chamber luncheon today where the governor was the speaker talking about some of the highlights of the legislative session. Some of the good things that happened, you know, happened for the support of our hospital and our health system. Some ways in which funding really will serve hospitals all over the state of New Mexico. And I know one of the things that's been on the minds of many of our faculty and staff really has to do with some of those issues of access and you know, availability of healthcare. So some good things will come out of recent events for our health system, some of which happened in the legislature, some of which really, you know, happened as a part of agreements with the federal government and state agencies. You know, I think we did get additional new money in our instruction general budget. You know, still, I'm hopeful that we'll have a fuller legislative report for all of you. I'm not sure if that'll be scheduled on the Faculty Senate agenda, but I do hope that there'll be an opportunity for you to get, you know, find out as much as you want to about what this looked like. You might know that the compensation was a little disappointing, I'll say, because we went in really hoping for what had originally been mentioned as a 4%, but they ended up agreeing to a 3%. There was a new mechanism for providing money this year. What used to be called the junior bill became another mechanism that it's something new, but many areas of campus were able to get some funding through something that's not necessarily intended to be permanent at all. It's supposed to last for 2 years for different projects. So I know a number of our units were competitive in getting some of that funding. I think you know, those who've been on the Senate for a while have heard about the research and public service projects, the RPSBs. I think we probably shared with you at the last Senate meeting. My guess is that the provost shared with you that, it really happened before the legislative session that, you know, all of our new RPSBs were not approved. There's a lot going on in the legislature with regard to their thinking about how to provide that funding to institutions. And so, and there is also a plan to really understand and revamp the formula that is used to fund higher education. And so I really think that we were kind of at a standstill on some things because they're waiting for some of these studies to be completed. This, you know, the legislative session was, you know, pretty much, you know, we got some things we really needed. One of the most important projects, actually, just in terms of projects that affect, you know, a group of faculty, is that a couple of years ago, you might remember that we were able to receive 2 years worth of funding to develop an accredited school of public health. And that would be a transformation of our current College of Population Health into something broader that's accredited, that could be competitive for a lot of different kinds of funds that are special to schools of public health. So we had money over 2 years. There was work done to hire faculty for that program. And but it was just 2 years worth of funding. And so we were able to successfully get 3 additional years, but of course we'll need recurring funding over the long run. But as the enrollment for that college grows, as they're able to, with the faculty to compete for state and federal funds. Hopefully the actual recurring ask for that to support that program, will get increasingly less. But knowing that we're able to move forward with that, I do think, when times are tight, it's hard to think about creating something new and bigger. But when I think about the issues that face New Mexico, the health issues, I am a big believer in the concept of, public health, which is focused on prevention and well-being. But it's kind of the long-term investment, because so much of what happens in our state is focused on the diseases that people have, the challenges that they face. We have to do all of that, but the long run is made better by investments in the ways in which we can improve outcomes and prevent health issues. It's broadly defined earlier. So that was a good thing. I know that we were really focused on faculty salaries. There was a big push for School of Medicine faculty salaries in particular. There has been a recent change with some Medicare supplemental funding, and that I referenced earlier, kind of an agreement between the federal government and the state related to funding, and that's all associated with CMS and Medicaid supplements. But that funding has allowed the School of Medicine and the hospital to provide funding for the healthcare workforce. And so I think that several of the unions have reached some agreement for hospitals and for medical residents and fellows. The issue of School of Medicine, though, faculty salaries, it'll be something that, and faculty salaries in general, will be something that we continue to pursue. I was in the budget leadership team this morning. Many of you are aware that, there's a team of people that work starting in the fall to be prepared to take to the Board of Regents recommendations for tuition increases and compensation as a way to do budget planning. And we usually do that meeting following the end of the legislative session. So we had that meeting this morning. The proposal that was put in front of me was for a 3% tuition increase and 3% for compensation. And so, that will be going to the board. Many of you may remember, though, that last year, the Board of Regents did not approve any changes to tuition. And so it's unclear at this point exactly how a proposal of this sort will be viewed by the board. When I was in the legislature this session, it's clear that because of the cost to the state of opportunity and lottery, there's a lot of concern about institutions raising tuition. And so next week, that there's been a change to the way the Board of Regents for UNM will conduct its business. That change really consolidates our subcommittee meetings into a day and a half, 2 weeks in advance of a full board meeting. And then there's something called the Committee of the Whole, where it's an opportunity for the regents to have discussions on really important issues. And so that Committee of the Whole will take place next Wednesday. And the two big topics will be the budget for the institution and something called the Integrated Campus Plan, which is something that we've been working on since September to really plan out, what the physical plant of the institution, kind of a flexible plan for growth of the institution using the properties that we have. It's a 200+ page document that will be presented to everyone. It goes to the board for approval in May, but people will start seeing this full document, and I do believe there's already access to it. But to go back, that committee of the whole will focus on two big things. That the budget will be probably a discussion around compensation, around tuition and fee increases. And so more to come on that as that discussion unfolds. You know, since I last saw you, goodness, I think we've hired a new football coach. We've, you know, started a new quantum science information institute, the Quantum New Mexico Institute. We've hired a couple deans. We have actually recognized incredible work by faculty and staff. And I think, and I don't know how many of you follow basketball, but you know, we're still looking at what's ahead for the basketball season for both men and women. I know some of you do follow it. I see some of you at the games. So, you know, that creates a lot, you know, some fun and excitement, and sometimes some sad moments when, you know, things don't go quite the way you expect at the end of a game, like Air Force on Saturday. So, you know, there's a lot more I could talk about. There were some, you know, related to the legislative session. You know, there were some minor changes made to opportunity and lottery in particular that I think will benefit our students and make it easier for them to retain their scholarships. There was, you know, funding that's intended to help provide our faculty's ability to get matching funds for grants that require some matching funds. But, you know, again, I think there's a, you know, a much fuller presentation of the legislative session that I hope that you will have once we get past the, you know, the governor's veto deadline. I'm sure there's more I could get to, but I'll just stop there. And so I see a question that just popped up related to changes to the opportunity scholarship eligibility. You know, I think the big change actually was more to the lottery scholarship related to being able to count summer hours. Trying to think if there were actual changes to the opportunity scholarship itself and eligibility for it. Something did, but I'm sorry that it's not coming to mind exactly what that tweak might have been. Oh, so yeah, the lottery scholarship. The major change to the lottery scholarship really was that there was always a requirement for how many hours are completed over the academic year for students in the four-year schools. And now very clearly summer is allowed to count. And previously summer hours were not. And so it just makes it much more flexible for the students. And I know the provost had spoken to all of you. I'm pretty sure it was in front of Senate, that I know he talked about it at the Regent subcommittee, that issue of trying to keep our students, allow them to keep their eligibility for this funding, because it makes such a huge difference in their ability to stay in school. And so we've been pushing for this change to lottery for some time. It, you know, just provides greater flexibility and a higher level, I think, of retention of the scholarship itself. So hopefully I answered the question in the chat. So the question, are they still required to take 15 credit hours each semester? You know, my notes they actually talk about the 15 hours, but then they call it an academic year, but then they include the summer. You know, I would expect that means that the thing about lottery is it's what hours you complete. And so I would have to assume that there is more flexibility on number of hours actually attempted in a semester, as long as the 30 hours took place over that kind of what would be considered a 3-semester fall, winter, summer type of class and attendance and enrollment. Are there other questions for me from anyone here? I'm not hearing anyone. All right. Well, I want to say thank you all I heard, I came on slightly late, so I heard some reference to spring break. Really hoping you're gonna love spring break and it's what you are looking for. I'm sure you could use it as a time to get things done that are impossible to get done any other time. I know what that hope is like. Yeah. All right, well, thank you. Appreciate seeing all of you. Thanks for what you're doing.
Thanks so much, President Stokes. Appreciate you being here. Next on our agenda is Dr. Victor Acosta from Physics and Astronomy. It will present the new graduate certificate in quantum science and technology.
Okay, great. Yeah, thank you for having me here. It's my first time at a faculty senate meeting, so I hope I follow the right procedures or so. But yeah, we have proposed to start a graduate certificate in quantum science and technology, and this is an activity that's led by the Quantum Photonics and Quantum Technology, or QPACT Programming Committee. I'll explain that in a minute. So that is myself within physics and astronomy. That's Professor Susan Atlas in chemistry and chemical biology, Professor Victoria Babicheva in electrical and computer engineering, Professor Gunny Balakrishnan in ECE, Professor Elohim Becerra in physics and astronomy, Professor Tara Drake in physics and astronomy, Professor Terefe Habteas in chemistry and chemical biology, and Professor Keith Lidke in physics and astronomy. So the motivation is really related to let's say the scholarly topic. So it is, in at least my opinion, a fascinating interdisciplinary curriculum that probes one of the deepest technological questions of our era. So that's like, how can we leverage quantum systems for new technology and things like computing, communications, and sensing. So yeah, this is just the type of material that we'd like for UNM students to have the opportunity to learn. We expect that the certificate will draw in graduate students from traditional academic disciplines. So it's just a certificate. It's not a PhD or a master's program. So students would still be presumably graduate students in master's and PhD programs within chemistry, engineering, optical sciences, and engineering and physics. But we want to have it be a broadly inclusive curriculum. So we don't require any additional like math, physics, and quantum mechanics prerequisites beyond whatever those programs use to admit and students in their first place. So, which is a challenge, but a challenge that we're all excited to take on. So yeah, we think that there's like a high demand from the UNM graduate applications that we already received. So like the two areas that I'm most familiar with in the optical sciences and engineering program, we counted like a little more than 25 applicants per year in the last couple of years interested in this topic for education research. And then in the physics PhD program, it's more than 70 applicants per year already. There's growing interest in engineering and chemistry. I don't have exact counts. We also really would like to recruit from within New Mexico. So we have this QReach program. It's a summer undergraduate program in quantum technology exclusively for students who are attending a college or university in the state of New Mexico. And so we kind of hope that we can have a bit of a pipeline from the QReach program into this graduate certificate program. And then, yeah, the goals of the program are maybe number one is that we'd like for this to be a transcripted certificate in quantum science and technology that will train students to be generalists in quantum technology and give them the tools and academic preparation for a wide variety of applications within different fields. I mentioned before the program is designed to run concurrently with MS and PhD programs in the more traditional fields, chemistry, physics, OSE, engineering. There are existing quantum information concentrations within the computer engineering master's program and the physics PhD program. So we don't want to conflict with those. We've designed the curriculum so that students may, in those programs, may obtain a quantum information concentration with minimal additional requirements, so they can get both their certificate in quantum SMT and also the quantum information concentration. And then, yeah, the structure of the program is basically a 13 credit program that most of the coursework can be done within a year, and that, you know, would lead to a transcripted certificate that would assert education expertise in the topic. And then I included something about budget. I don't know exactly whether the committee cares or not, but I just in July 2023, University of New Mexico received a $3 million NSF grant. It's in this National Research Traineeship Program called NRT-QL, Quantum Photonics Interdisciplinary Training to Advance Quantum Technologies. This is this QPACT program. So in some sense, the graduate certificate stemmed from, you know, discussions that the leadership of that program came about. And so the goal of that award is to introduce and sustain a graduate program into quantum technology at the intersection of physics, chemistry, and engineering. And that's basically the major goal of the proposed graduate certificate in quantum science and technology. And then the award does include kind of the minimum required resources for starting the program, like a 0.5 FTE program specialist, $2.3 million in graduate student stipends, tuition fringe, and et cetera. So there's like sort of already resources in place, and we don't expect that we absolutely require additional faculty space or other resources. That's all I prepared, but happy to answer any questions.
Questions for Dr. Acosta? You're getting lots of love in the chat.
Oh, thank you. I need to open the chat. Is there questions in the chat or?
Just love.
I'll take it.
If there aren't any questions, do we have a motion to vote on the program?
This is Ezra, so moved.
Thank you, Ezra. Second?
I'll second.
Thank you. Thank you, Natalie. Rick, can you bring up the poll, please?
Okay, there are 39 votes in favor, 0 against, and 0 abstain.
Well, it's unanimous. Congratulations, Dr. Acosta. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you all so much. Appreciate it.
See, Faculty Senate, no problem. It's a breeze. We're a friendly group, friendly, supportive group. Thank you so much. Congratulations again. Okay. Let's see what we've got here. Next on our agenda is my Faculty Senate President's report. President Stokes stole my thunder. No, I'm just kidding. It's her thunder, really. But I, as you know, representing faculty as Faculty Senate President, I do attend the budget leadership team meetings. And we did have the vote yesterday, and then today was presenting the recommendations to President Stokes. And then President Stokes, if I'm not correct, it then goes on to make recommendations to the Board of Regents, correct? And of the 3 items that were under discussion, it was the faculty compensation 3% across the board, and another $1 million supporting the School of Medicine, since that comes from a different fund. And that was 3% average rather than across the board. There was also discussion of the tiers regarding healthcare benefits and the tier amounts that, for example, depending on how much a faculty member makes, depending on which tier you fall in, that determines what percentage of your health benefits you pay versus what UNM pays. And then there was also discussion of, I think we can prepare for an increase to cost of healthcare benefits by 16.8%. So that was all one item among three. The second item being the tuition increase. It was recommended 3% increase. And then the third item was a tuition deferral. Tuition differential for the School of Engineering and also an MSA program in anesthesia. So as I'm representing all of you and faculty, I wanted to let you know how I voted on those three items. I voted in support of the tuition increase this year. I was against it last year. I voted in support of it this year. I'm happy to share with you why, if you're interested. I voted in favor of the tuition deferral, and I did vote against the faculty compensation 3% across the board and the $1 million 3% average for the School of Medicine because I would like to see a more significant increase to faculty compensation. I know President Stokes shares that feeling, or at least, would like to see us address more, maybe efficiently and effectively, closing that pay gap between UNM faculty and our peer institutions. I think President Stokes, you would agree with me on that. And I voted no against that particular item because I'm discouraged by how slow that recommendation will get us there. And I know President Stokes asked a question about that as well, which I really appreciated at the BLT. So that's all I wanted to report to all of you at this time, other than I will also mention I want to try again coming together face to face as a faculty. So our next faculty senate meeting in March will be face to face, and Nancy, Rick, and I are pinning down exactly where that will be. We're looking at both the sub and remind me of the second location. Is it Hodgen?
In Hodgen Hall.
Hodgen Hall, yeah. So we'll get back to you all about that location. And Rick, could you also remind us when that meeting, the Faculty Senate meeting, will take place? Because I know there's a Board of Regent meeting that coincides or conflicts
Well,
that month.
that's a good question. With the change in the Board of Regents meeting schedule, the
Mm.
original date is still there, but I don't know, to avoid confusion, maybe we should keep it as the 23rd.
So,
Okay.
that was the April meeting that we were
The
talking.
April, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Okay.
And-
So March.
And that would help us for if we wanted to put things on the Board of Regents meeting, Chris.
Okay. Okay. So you all can, we'll of course give you plenty of notice of when and where the March meeting will take place, as well as the April meeting. The April meeting will be online. I also want to mention, I'd like people to try as much as possible to be face to face at that March meeting, but I also know that some of you have afternoon responsibilities or geographic responsibilities and locations that make it harder for you. So consider it, I hope you will take me up on my invitation to meet face to face and to meet over snacks and drinks. non-alcoholic, unfortunately. I mean, that's the way it is when spending university money. So, okay. Any questions about what I've shared with you?
Chris,
Okay. Yes.
do you want to remind them about a committee preference survey and also,
Oh,
also elections for other areas?
yes. Thank you.
Thank
Yeah, so you probably saw just recently the survey for committee preferences went out. And for those of you who your term on the committee you are currently serving on, if your term continues into the next academic year, you do not need to complete the survey unless you're hoping to switch to a new committee, but you'll need to let me know that so that I'm aware of that when I'm appointing people to various committees. Also, there will be elections for, make sure I get this right, Nancy, for AF&T, COG, and incoming chair for Faculty Senate President.
Yeah, we'll do that after we get the faculty senate seated, but it's a faculty senate at large member. So it would be not representing a college or school, but you would be it would be an at-large member.
Thank you. And I didn't mean incoming chair, I mean incoming president. Yes.
We'll have to do that as well, yeah.
And I just saw, I just saw a question come up in the chat. Yay, snacks, I concur. Okay, thank you, Heather, for letting me know about the spring break for APS. I really appreciate that heads up. Yes, good question. I don't know if President Stokes wants to comment on this, if she's still on, but regarding COLA, that was part of the Senate's discussion at the state house, and they were discussing when it was originally a 4%, they were discussing a 2% COLA, and I can't remember what the how they were separating out the other 2%, but I mean, basically 2%, that's not going to, as you all know, that's not going to cover COLA and the changes in inflation, et cetera, et cetera. It'd have to be a much larger amount to even cover COLA. But they did, in their House bill, they did specifically state 3% across the board versus 3% average, which I'm sure many of you already know. The difference between 3% across the board means everyone receives that amount versus average means there's a disparity in who gets raises and by how much, as long as the raises that are given out across faculty is equal to 3%. So that can include 0% for some people and, you know, a certain amount for other people. But that won't be the case here. But the reason why I mention it is because it's across the board, there's not really a sense of 3% across the board. There's no designation of what percentage of that is COLA, right? Okay, I think that's it. So next on our agenda is Kevin Stevenson to talk about the employee engagement survey. And please just know I've asked Kevin to come and talk to us all about it, and I will give us time during this meeting to complete that survey. I thought it would be helpful for all of us to have completed that survey so that we can talk to our faculty colleagues, faculty and staff colleagues about completing that survey. Go ahead, Kevin.
All right. Thank you so much, Chris. Thanks everybody for having me for a couple of minutes. Yesterday, we launched our employee engagement survey, which is a partnership with Gallup, the survey and analytics firm, not the branch, to measure employee engagement. We had a similar survey last spring of just staff employees, and the results, the information that it provided were really insightful, were very useful, really helpful. But we also realized that it had some significant shortcomings. Maybe first and foremost being that the environment and culture within a unit is really the makeup of the faculty and staff contributions together. And so for the survey this semester, it's going to all faculty and staff, which we're very excited about. One of the reasons that we partnered with Gallup to conduct this survey, say a lot of reasons that we partnered with Gallup to conduct the survey, but I want to touch on a couple of them. The first is benchmarkability, and so there are thousands of other higher ed institutions and other institutions across the world that conduct the same survey, and so we have good ability to benchmark our scores against other institutions, which provides additional helpful context. One of the other pieces of this is confidentiality, and so the Gallup platform provides us a lot of flexibility around analysis and the ability to disaggregate results by things, demographic criteria, by rank, by time and position, by unit, lots of useful and interesting things, but also maintains confidentiality. And so individual responses are never shared. There's a free text question at the end, of which Gallup has access to analyze and provides us kind of a sentiment analysis. And so we're kicking this off now. We're pretty excited for it. We took a peek just a couple minutes ago. We had almost 400 regular faculty from both, I guess, all 6 campuses who had completed that already. So I am going to drop the link to the survey in the chat. You all should have received an email yesterday, and Gallup will send out reminder emails on a reasonable cadence going forward. And if we do, and I really appreciate Chris's offer to take time during the meeting to encourage you all to view and take the survey. It's 20 multiple choice questions, very, very quick to get through. It's a mix of the standard Gallup questions, which are benchmarkable to other institutions, and then also includes Gallup's Culture of Inclusion Index, and then some specific faculty questions that speak to things like development, tenure, promotion, support within units, that won't be benchmarkable, but we think are helpful data points and insight to have. If you do use the friendly link in the chat, it'll ask for a survey code. That's your UNM email address, which is what Gallup will use to track the response back to your invite. And then we have an engagement survey website, engage.unm.edu, which has lots of interesting information. You can see information about the questions that Gallup asks and why they ask those questions. There are some funky ones in there. And you can see last year's results and some of the kind of outcomes and follow-on activity as a result of the survey. Maybe my last comment, and then we'll stand for any questions, is we're doing this survey on the front half of the semester on purpose. We wanted to get this in before spring break, and one of the important reasons for that is so that we'll have results back from Gallup before the semester ends. And so this will allow us to share the outcomes, share the results before the end of the semester, before folks leave for the summer. and then allow the results and data, things that we learn, to be incorporated into kind of the natural planning and goal setting process that we go through as we come back to begin the year. And one of the things that we've been talking about with Chris, as well as Grace Faustino, the staff council president, is possibly having a joint faculty senate and staff council meeting where Gallup would come and present the results of the survey directly to you all, so that you can see what they say, ask questions from the experts, and kind of help us both, hopefully now on the front end, help us encourage participation in the survey, but then also help us digest and act on the results of what we learn. So that was my spiel for today. Thank you all for your time, and let me know if anybody has questions. Oh,
Kevin,
Natalie,
there's one.
good question.
Yeah.
So we've sent an invitation list to Gallup, which includes a wide variety of variables, including things like department and academic title, rank, years in position, years at UNM. So trying to captured a lot of information that we have available to us via banner without having to ask you even more questions. And then in terms of the disaggregation, most of the way it works is through a reporting hierarchy. And so if you think about a department chair, will be able to go into the Gallup system and see the aggregated results for the faculty and staff in their department. A dean would be able to go in and see the disaggregated results for the different units in that college. And there are sample size minimums and things, so we don't share summary results for response sizes or units that are too small. If you do have small units or units with only a handful of responses, those kind of roll up to the next level. And so if you say had a departmental research center that didn't have enough responses, that might roll up into the results of the parent department. The minimum number is at least 4. And so as long as there's 4 responses, then the average numeric scores are available to kind of the unit leadership. And the open text results are never shared. So the last question here is an open-ended question that is not shared at all. We have Gallup analyze that information for us and then provide back kind of summary analyses, but there's really no way in my mind to ensure anonymity and confidentiality while also sharing, with your chair or supervisor, the open-ended text questions, because a lot of times people tend to write like they talk. And so we want to make sure we do preserve that promise of confidentiality.
Thank you. Thank you, Kevin.
You.
And just so senators are clear, I'm going to give you time later on in the meeting to complete the survey. And I know some of you may have done it already, but I will give you time later in the meeting to complete the survey. Thanks so much, Kevin. Okay, so let's see. Rick, can you tell me, is Pamela here?
I haven't seen her check in.
Okay, let me.
Dr. Cornelius is here though.
Oh, okay, great. So next on our agenda is the general education curriculum changes. Dr. Cornelius, would you like to start without Pamela, or do you want her to go first? How are you feeling about that?
I'm fine to go ahead.
Great, thank you. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
So Dr. Cornelius will be talking about an edition of Architecture 2125, World Architecture 2 to Gen Ed.
Yep. So we're proposing to offer this course as a general education course. It is a required course for all architecture majors. But the specific area we want to offer this course in Gen Ed is into humanities. A big part of what is covered in the course is not only architectural history, but methodologies for research. The students get to write about their own world, how they see architecture and how they apply it to them. The way that we've been teaching the course is not just in the sort of standard survey that you might find at other programs, but to also make that as inclusive as possible, talking about examples from the state, because this is World Architecture 2, it covers everything from 1700 to the present. And so the students are asked to, in the past, they've been asked to write papers about a place that they call home. And through that, they're taught the different sources of information and their research, the differences between primary sources and secondary sources. So there's a lot of sort of research methodology that's incorporated in the course too. So it's not that it is so specialized to architecture that other students wouldn't benefit from it, but it is, I think, both that sort of research focused course, but it is also a thing that we want to be able to share architecture with everyone, and allow that course to be offered as a gen ed. It won't have any sort of significant impacts on us as a department. The lecture hall that it is normally offered in holds 300 people. And so really, if the course grew super significantly to a few hundred students, it would only really mean that we would need probably an extra graduate assistant for the course. But other than that, there aren't any other sort of larger economic impacts to the course.
Any questions? Okay, thank you, Dr. Cornelius. Rick, are we going to invite Pamela to present before we vote, or did you want to do this as separate polls?
I have it set up as separate polls, but we could do however you want.
Well, Dr. Cornelius or Dr. Cheek, do you have an opinion? Because I don't know how related these two items are.
Yeah, I'll just say, I think you should go ahead with the separate poll. My item is really informational, and we're popping it in here because it is also connected to general education. So I think, this should my informational piece should just come afterwards.
Okay. Thank you. Rick, could you go ahead and please bring up the poll? And again, I'll just invite you all one more time to ask questions if you have any for Dr. Cornelius.
Okay, 29 approve, 1 do not approve, 1 abstain, and 1 more approve came in, 2 more, so it's 31, 33, and just 1 each of a not approve and an abstention.
It looks like they're still coming in.
Yeah.
Okay, so we have 35 out of 37 approve for 95% support. Congratulations, Dr. Cornelius. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, everyone.
Okay, Dr. Pamela Cheek, let me turn it over to you regarding requirements, required program changes from the HED.
Great. Thank you so much for the opportunity to share this with you. And Rick and Nancy, I don't know if you were able to screen the link to Quali and to the Gen Ed change form. I think that might make it easier for people to understand what's going on here. And while they're pulling that up, I'll give you guys some background. So you may know, or you probably know, that the New Mexico Higher Education Department has significant oversight over the general education program that we offer, and really it's oversight over how general education is offered at all HEIs, at all higher education institutions in the state of New Mexico. So while we have discretion around the courses that we enter into our general education program, and you just exercise that discretion by looking at the World Architecture 2125, we don't have discretion about the organization of our general education program and the distribution of credits. So it turns out that when between 2017 and the present, in our eagerness to conserve the area numbers, and also in our eagerness to have descriptors for the areas that had the kind of complexity that we associate with our institution, we actually didn't align completely with the way that our general education areas could have conformed to what was going on in the rest of the state of New Mexico. So the Higher Education Department has caught up with us, and they have required us to make our general education areas look like what is showing up at every other school from CNM to NMSU across the state. That said, we negotiated some leeway so that we could maintain in subtitles the names of the areas for our general education. And we also negotiated some leeway so that we could include within the humanities area a call out for second languages so that we could preserve what we had been doing. So let's scroll down and I'll show you what I'm talking about. That's kind of abstract. But again, the kind of key issue here is that the Higher Education Department is requiring that we display our areas of general education in the same way that the rest of the state does. So keep on going. This was just the proposal for Architecture 2025. Down to the general education text. Okay, and past that and into the areas, past that and into the areas area. Keep going. There you go. Okay, here we have it. Okay, so area 1 will stay the same. And since we had been calling it communication, and communication is what the state calls it, we're good to go. It'll stay as communication. Scroll down to area 2. Area 2, oops, up a little bit. Sorry, there we go. All right. Area 2, we have been calling this mathematics and statistics because we are conscientious about making a distinction between mathematics and statistics, not so necessarily for the rest of the state of New Mexico. So what we will be doing with this area is titling it Area 2 Mathematics, which is the title that everybody else in the state is using, and then colon mathematics and statistics to clarify that there is a difference between math and stats. Let's scroll down to Area 3. Okay, same kind of change here. Whoops, up a little bit, up a little bit, up a little bit. There we go. Okay. Area 3, it's called science by the state. So we must call it, we're required to call it science, but we wanted to make it a little clearer what kind of science we're talking about. So we're using the old area name, physical and natural sciences. And kudos to all the STEM departments that have done a great job creating a connection between their general education science course and the 1 credit hour lab that is also part of general education. So scrolling on down, this is kind of a consistent theme here. Area 4, actually in this case, we're fine with social and behavioral science rather than, I think we had social and behavioral sciences, a relatively minor change to align with the state requirement. Scrolling on down to area 5, it's going to get more exciting. Okay, this is where it gets exciting. So we have had 2 areas, area 5 humanities, and then area 6 second language. The rest of the state puts, say, Spanish 1110 or Navajo 1110. Actually, I think we're the only ones who teach Navajo into a separate area. Sorry, they put it into humanities. And they really, make it possible for a student to take, say, Spanish 1110 or French 1110 and not take any other humanities courses. We went a different way in our transition to the new state statute around general education. And we preserved, since we're a Research 1, a requirement that there be some second language. We had that broken out as a separate area. We're now being required to move it in to area 5 humanities. So second language will be in area 5 in the future. Area 5 will be called humanities. But here's the trick to it. The rest of the state will be just requiring 3 credit hours for area 5 for humanities. So a student at, say, CNM or NMSU would be able to take Spanish 1110 and they would be done with humanities. Or they could take, world literature and be done with humanities. We have area 5A humanities, which has humanities courses. And then scroll down a little bit. And we have area 5B, which is a second language. And so our language courses will continue to be represented and a requirement within the general education program. So 6 credit hours are required for area 5, 3 of them in 5A, which is humanities, and 3 of them in 5B, which is languages. De facto, absolutely no change in what our students will be doing or what our transfer students will be experiencing when they come in. It's really a matter of representing things in a way that aligns with what the higher education department requested that we do. Okay, so then scrolling on down, area 6.
Sorry, Pamela. I just want to let you know we have about
Yeah.
1 more minute. But I
This-
do want you to stay on for a sec.
Yeah, this is the last one. Okay, so all of this is really just doing what HED is requesting that we do. Doesn't change anything in our higher education, in our practice with general education. Arts and design used to be the name of area 7, so that's where this architecture course that you just added actually belongs, along with all of our arts courses. It's now area 6 because we moved second language into 5B of humanities. Okay, and that's really the end of the changes. So we're just different numbers, a different way of representing things, exactly the same general education program. For area 5, do students have to take 1 course in 5A and 1 course in 5B? Correct. Yes, 1 in 5A and 1 in 5B, correct. So they will take 1 humanities course and 1 second language course. And that's really all there is to it. It'll be kind of different nomenclature for us, but very much the same general education program that we've had.
Questions for Pamela?
Yeah, let me
Let's
explain the
see.
diversity requirement. That's Chris, did you want me to take that question?
Please,
So
please.
the diversity requirement, the diversity requirement, so it's the US and global diversity, equity, inclusion, and power requirement. And that requirement is a 3 credit hour requirement that is a university requirement. It's a requirement at the University of New Mexico. It does not fall under the higher education department's oversight of the general education program. It is the case that some courses that are general education courses per the Faculty Senate approval of those courses as general education courses are also at the same time courses that count for the US and global diversity, equity, inclusion, and power requirement. So you can, in other words, a student can, in some cases, double count a course, count it in fulfillment of general education, often in social sciences, actually, often in humanities, sometimes in art, more rarely, sometimes in communication. A student can double count. They can count for in general education, and they can count in what's colloquially called the diversity requirement. However, a student may choose a diversity requirement course that is not a course that also counts for general education. There's choice there. There are some challenges when there are an insufficient distribution of diversity requirement courses across the curriculum. And I know that the committee that selects those courses has been working on making sure that there are a range of courses available to students, but it's a university requirement. It's not a general education program requirement.
Okay, thank you so much, Pamela. And Pamela, you and I didn't talk about this previously, but do you have a few minutes? Can you stay with us past public comment? Just a few more minutes. Thank you so much. Okay, so next on our agenda is public comment. Rick, do we have any public comments?
No.
Okay, so Pamela, the reason why I asked you to stay on is because we had a plan for the January Faculty Senate meeting, and I wasn't able to attend due to a personal matter. So I wanted to ask, we have the 2 slides that you shared with me ready. I was going to ask if you could just take a couple of minutes per slide, just a couple of minutes per slide to explain to senators before we go into a closed session what the issues are that we are discussing around student success. And if there are any faculty present who are not senators, but you'd like to stay for the discussion, as long as Nancy and Rick tell me I can do that. Really, that closed session is just going to be a discussion of student success. And the only reason why I wanted to make it closed is so that faculty feel maybe freer to have conversations with their colleagues. But we won't be deciding anything. So Pamela, does that sound okay with you to go over those slides just briefly?
Sure. Yeah, we'll have to forgive me a little bit. I just had some dental work done, so I'm not at my crispest, but I'm happy to make an effort here.
Never would have noticed. Rick, would you mind sharing in the chat, in the Zoom chat, please? Rick is going to share a link for you all. I would go ahead and open that link because you all are going to need the folder that is at that link when we go into breakout rooms. And in that folder, if I have shared the right link, should be the slides, the 2 slides that Pamela's going to talk about, and then you'll see groups 1 through 10. And I'll explain more what the groups 1 through 10 is for in just a moment. But let me go ahead and let Pamela talk about those 2 slides. And of course, feel free to open those up. Rick, if you want to share those slides that in the Faculty Senate window, that's great too.
Yeah, and actually I'm trying to access them in Google Drive. It's been a while since I made those for you. So if we could even put those on screen share, that would be handy for me, just to remind me of exactly what I put down. So real quickly, to give you guys some context, for 2040, for in keeping with the 2040 strategic framework, thanks so much, Rick. We are working with so many constituents across the university on multiple projects, and there's a whole area of work around wellness, mental health, basic needs, that's being done primarily with leadership from Student Affairs and Services and Eric Scott. There's a whole amount of work that's being done to improve our infrastructure, including advising, including data, including having a better interface for our students and better means of communicating with our students through a brand new portal that we're in the process of building. There's a lot of work that faculty are doing and that staff are doing on high impact practices and on enhancing things that we already do. There's a lot of great grant work. But there's particularly an opportunity that I think aligns well with the Faculty Senate and your interest in, I hope, in collaborating on all of this student success work through two foci. So there's lots of areas that we can collaborate, but I was trying to kind of keep it limited and concrete. And there are two great areas for collaboration, many more when we have the time to address it. So one is on creating universal first-year experience courses. So first-year experience courses are a national best practice. Right now, about a third of our first-year students are probably receiving some form of a first-year experience course. Optimally, first-year experience courses provide students with navigation skills, sense of belonging, basic college success skills, financial capability, and also an introduction to the habits of mind that are appropriate for their college, school, or branch. We have a lot of need to address our rapid decline at the third semester point in retention. That's the point at which a lot of students leave the university, by retaining them in the first year. And it turns out that actually our students are far more likely to lose their lottery and opportunity scholarships in the first year than at any other time. And that there's a kind of, waterfall effect in which, once you withdraw from a class, your financial aid is at risk, and you're that much more likely to leave the university altogether. First-year experience courses are one antidote to that kind of challenge. There are a lot of other things we're working on to address that challenge as well. But this is one of the many ways that we can address things, and it's very faculty-centric. So I wanted to bring to your attention the opportunity to expand delivery of first-year experience courses from reaching 1/3 of our student population to reaching all of our first-year students. And an update, we have a group of folks who have been working on first-year experience courses who've gathered together to create modules that can be useful around some key areas: time management, financial capability, et cetera, that we then will be able to make available to all colleges and schools, so that they can bring those modules into courses that they craft within their college or school. And we're taking advantage of Canvas and also the Open Educational Resources Grant to do that. So this is an area that's just ripe for faculty involvement. Next slide. So in general, and actually be nice to be able to go back to that so I can refer to it, the pedagogical innovation one. In general, I know, all of you are involved in many different meaningful ways in making your classes into environments that provide equitable opportunities for students to succeed. And I'm really gratified to say that about 180 faculty across UNM have participated in the Student Experience Project, which is wonderful. A bunch of faculty have participated in expanding course-based undergraduate research experiences, which I know Dr. Elder has been involved in. Fabulous. Lots of great faculty development opportunities, formative feedback that's funded by this, the HHMI, the Howard Hughes Medical Institute. That's a whole new program that's come out of CTL. So all of you are involved in different ways in being innovative teachers we have the opportunity to really expand the learning that we do as faculty to address the students that we have, and to really kind of complete this shift that we've been engaged in, I think, since just before COVID, towards really focusing on making sure that the students we have at UNM who come from extremely diverse experiences have every opportunity to know that they are supported here, and that we believe that with the right effort on their part and the right support on our part, they can succeed in their majors and they can graduate from college. So what this slide is really suggesting is that there's an opportunity for the Faculty to Senate to collaborate in evaluating a number of national best practices and other approaches that we've identified that could really move the needle on third semester retention and on graduation overall. Some of those things include rethinking our withdrawal policy, which is extremely generous. It's actually much more expansive than CNM's withdrawal policy and many withdrawal policies nationally. We have the opportunity to think about providing regular feedback to students so that they're not making decisions right about now in the semester about whether they should withdraw from a course because they're terrified of losing their financial aid, but they don't know how they're doing in the class. And so they're assuming they're failing and they're bailing out so that they can save their opportunity to have college paid for. We have opportunities to think about the way that we integrate, say, learning about time management into our lower division courses. There's lots of areas where faculty really have the power to edge up our retention by 2%, by 5%. Right now, we're at 75% for third semester. Collaborating, I think we can move that up to at least 80%. And each intervention that we make, such as changing a withdrawal policy, having more regular feedback, et cetera, can move things by a percentage or so. So that's, those are essentially the two areas where I think the Faculty Senate would have a tremendous amount to contribute. But that's not to say that there aren't other areas where there are opportunities for contribution. And I am deeply committed to working with all of you on trying to address this huge challenge, which is improving third semester retention and ultimately improving our graduation rate. And I hope that these two areas that Chris and I kind of pulled out of the many areas of work stimulate you and excite you. I would say that actually doing work on general education and bringing pedagogical innovation and transformed policies into the general education program is also low-hanging fruit. And it would be wonderful to work on that as well. So I'm seeing, if there are questions, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Pamela, I don't know if you saw Christina's question.
Yeah. So thank you for that, Christina. So I'm actually in a meeting. It's a really good question. I'm actually in a meeting tomorrow in which I want to make sure that we're clear and that the advising community is also clear as we move into the summer about the implications of the new regulations. So I actually don't want to speak out of turn before I talk to Liz Amador and Matt Hewlett over in enrollment management about the implications. But once I do understand the implications better, I'll try to make sure that the Faculty Senate is informed as well. I just don't want to misinterpret out of term. We sort of just got the information. And then in terms of who would teach the first year experience courses, there's a couple of different models right now. So the model in the Anderson School of Management, which is brand new, is that they actually have very large hybrid courses with required on-campus opportunities such as career fairs that they bring the students into, even as the students move through a largely asynchronous set of courses. And they just launched that in the fall, 600 students in 6 different sections. Very, very different model for UNM, which has relied on the university college model for the most part, where small cohorts of students, 20, 25 students, have a dedicated instructor who works with them for a semester. Arts and Sciences 198 is another model in which we have advisors teamed up with graduate teaching assistants teaching the Arts and Sciences 198 first year courses. So a bunch of different.
Michael, did you have a question? Okay. Okay. Thank you, Pamela. I want to make sure that we leave enough time for faculty, for senators to actually talk about these points. Did we lose Pamela? Did we lose you? Oh, there you are. Okay. Sorry, did you get, is it okay if we stop there? Okay.
Oh, good. Yeah. And I
okay,
guess my final
okay.
thought, Chris, would be just to reiterate, there are other opportunities to collaborate and there's a lot of information, and I'm really delighted to join you at any point or a subgroup to share that. I know that Satya Witt, who's right here on my screen, has been involved in a really exciting project to support pedagogical innovation and development for graduate teaching assistants. That's also part of the puzzle for student success. So thank you so much for letting me here and for the opportunity to share all this with you. And I'll leave you now.
Satya's amazing. And she also supports faculty success because she was my mentor for the Golden Paw. So thank you, Satya. Thank you so much, Pamela. I appreciate it. Okay, so I would like to move into closed session, but as I mentioned, really, I just was expecting this to be closed for administrators. So that's any faculty whose primary, not senators, but I'm not excluding any senators, but anyone, say like Pamela Cheek, who, yes, she's faculty, but her primary role right now is administration. So I just was hoping to, in case we want to make it a more comfortable environment for people to have conversation around these topics. Excuse me. Rick, can you tell me, oh, sorry, we have to vote. Do we have a motion to move into closed session for faculty discussion?
So moved.
John Burke.
Thank you, John. Do we have a second?
Second, Roberta Levin.
Thank you, Roberta. Oh, we even have a poll for that. Thank you. Okay, great. So it looks like we have 30 people, 31, about 35 participants. Okay. I'm going to go ahead and end the poll. Because that's going to help me determine how many breakout rooms we need. So basically, again, if you'll copy the link that Rick put to pass on to me or to Rick or to Nancy, or you can do it anonymously in your Google Doc. Any feedback you have for me, because I would like to continue providing time for us all to have these kinds of conversations. You can let me know how you feel about the the way it's set up. You can also let me know if there are particular topics that you want to discuss in breakout groups. I did see, I think, John, I saw from you, you wanted to talk about at some point metrics for raises. I think that's an interesting idea. And that's an interesting idea. So I'm open to your feedback. Please know that. And you're all, you know, if you're all continuing on, you're stuck with me for at least another year. Okay, so, and also encourage people to take the preference survey. And do we need to, do we have a motion to adjourn?
I think Kudruta has a question.
Oh, Kodru.
Sorry to bug, but it's asking me for a survey code.
Oh. Oh.
It's your
I believe-
email. Your
Yeah,
email.
that's-
email.
It's your email.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Yeah. If you
Thank
don't
you.
follow
Good thing
the
we-
direct link,
Thank
then
you.
you do it.
See,
with
good
your-
thing we practice.
I remember him saying that. I was paying attention. So-
Thank you all for being here. I appreciate you and I appreciate the work you do to support faculty and students. Ciao.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hey, Chris, is there any
Yeah.
way around the two-term limit for faculty senator?
Is there any way to extend it?
Yeah.
We have to get an exception if we do that. So I mean, right now it says that you can serve your 2 terms and you have to sit out a year. And we
Okay.
have gone to COG with exceptions if need be, like if a college doesn't have enough faculty to serve or something like that.
Okay.
But if they do, then they usually don't get that.
Yeah, I enjoy it. I really, and I'm happy, I'm excited for you as president, Chris. And
Oh,
nobody ever
thanks.
wants to be a faculty senator in my school, so I'm like, I'll do it again. But anyway, okay, just curious how
About a
serious
year,
this
come
is.
back again. How's that?
Carolyn, I would make an exception for you. So, can I make that argument to somebody, Nancy?
Well,
Yeah, well,
it's
maybe
COG
I've
that-
made it look like so much fun. Everybody's gonna want to do it next time. I'm not sure. So, but in the past, it's always been arm twisting and pulling teeth. And
Yeah.
anyway, so
Caroline,
Whatever.
if you're, remind me.
School of Architecture and
Yeah,
Planning.
if
Yeah.
they're having trouble finding someone to get on there, we could petition COG for an exception.
Okay, okay, I'll let
So-
you know. I'll be
Also,
But-
too, while you're senator, you could run for incoming president.
Then you'd be on faculty senate, right?
that's true.
And then you can still make it look fun for other people, so they'll want to get on.
Awesome. Well, thank you all very much, and I'll see you next time. Take
You
care.
could run for the, oh no, you
Ciao.
can't run for at large, nope.
Oh,
You know,
Yeah, I
never
thought
mind.
about that.
All right.
Okay, thanks, y'all. See you later.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye. John Scariano.
Yes.
Hi. Hi.
Hello. I'm here. I'm just finishing the survey.
Oh, okay.
That's
Oh, okay.
But
No
I will,
problem.
if
I
you
just,
need, I'm not quite sure if Dr. Gopala is going to do the notes or I can. I've got that page open, so.
oh, okay. That would be
Yeah.
great. Thank you.
Yeah, we basically had a conversation about poor attendance at the School of Medicine in terms of
Oh.
learning activities.
Oh, okay.
So, and engagement, you know, as far as I see engagement in the medical school, I think there's a discussion to go back to the old school technique of mandating attendance for learning activities, because if only 10% of them attend a learning activity, but 100% of them
Mhm.
are giving negative evaluations for that
Mm.
learning activity, we see that as being a real problem. So
Yeah.
that was the gist of our conversation.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
And then also engagement in terms of making sure that students are doing, especially the reading that goes along with their assignments. So,
Yeah. Yeah. That's it's interesting because a friend of mine who's a textbook author, I mean, he talks about the ways that they try to design textbooks now to make them more engaging and appealing for students. And it's really interesting, the strategies, you know, like how visual they have to make it. If text is over a certain number of words, they know it's not going to be read, you know, that kind of thing. So,
boo. I'll try to get those to you tomorrow if I can.
okay,
Is that all
yeah,
right?
no, sure,
Okay.
that would be great. I really
right.
appreciate that. Thanks so much.
You bet. Okay. I
Okay.
think we were the errant group, were we?
Yeah, you
No,
were,
okay.
but I wasn't going to tell anybody.
That's all right. We'll make sure we do it. So,
Thank you. I appreciate you.
You're good.
okay. Thanks very much.
Bye.
All right, see you later. We'll see you, Chris, and it looks like Chris, I think Rick's scheduled a debrief meeting with us, so.
Oh, okay. Okay, sounds good. You guys have a good night.
All right, talk to you later. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.